Well, I think we're going to get started. So good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, or even good evening, is if some of you are connected from Europe. I think a few people are. So my name is Alexandre Magnin, and we are going to spend the next 45 minutes to an hour together to talk about communicating sustainability with visually, effectively. I should tell you before we get started that this webinar is recorded, although most of you or all of you are muted, so that's not going to be, you won't be able to talk directly, but that's how it's going to go. Questions and issues are welcome in the questions or chat box. So feel free to use that if you have something, if you have any issue or any question during the webinar. I think I'm going to speak for about 30 minutes, and then we'll have time for questions and answers. So if you can save your question for the second part of the webinar, please do that. If you have something urgent, feel free to type it in the box as well. I have to apologize before starting because I have to undo my screen like that to access the panel. So in order to access the question and chat box, I'll have to do that. So I apologize if you see the screen go on and off like that on occasions, because I have to change some settings. So there we go. Here's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to start with a quick introduction about who I am and why I do what I do, and then we'll talk about the importance of the right brain in becoming sustainable or working towards sustainability. We'll talk about the difference between left brain and right brain and why the right brain is important, at least in my opinion. And then I'll show you a bunch of tools to help you make sustainability more engaging in your context, depending on what you do and what you need, whether it's in your work, in an organization that you volunteer for, in your family, in your personal life, or anything like that. And that should take about half an hour, and I'm we're thinking that the second half would be questions and answer. It may be a little longer for the first half if I get a little more into the details, but that's roughly what it's going to look like. So this is who I am, or that's a self-portrait drawing of me. I'm not as smiling on this one as I was on the first photo. Briefly, who I am, I'm originally from France, hence my accent. I've been living in Canada for about 7 years now, in Western Canada. I used to run a viral marketing agency about 10 years ago in France. That's the communication person in me. I did in 2006 a master's called Strategic Leadership Towards Sustainability that is based in Sweden and based on the Natural Step framework. I'm not going to speak too much about the Natural Step, but just a little bit. And I have been, I've worked as a sustainability advisor or associate since then. So that's about 7-8 years. And just to most of you must have heard or be familiar with the Natural Step since you registered for this webinar on the Natural Step website. But the Natural Step is an international nonprofit. And I worked with the Canadian office for 4 or 5 years, and I'm still associated to the Natural Step Canada, still working on advisory work with businesses and community on occasion. And just to clarify the difference between the Natural Step, the organization, and the framework that is also referred to as the Natural Step framework on occasion that you may be familiar with as well. the natural step framework can also be called the framework for strategic sustainable development, and we'll talk about that a little bit during the webinar. And the last thing to know about me that you probably already guessed and that we're going to talk a little bit about is that I also like drawing and illustrating, whether it's charcoal or pencil drawing like the one on the screen right now, or more cartoony illustrations. But that's something I've enjoyed doing for a long time. And to transition to what we're going to talk about during this webinar, I have tried over the last couple of years to combine my sustainability skills and my drawing illustration skills. So the photo on the left is a typical workshop setting. That was a Pratt & Whitney workshop in Montreal, I think in 2009 or 10 or something like that. So that's what I did for a number of years, working with businesses and communities to help them understand what sustainability is, to understand what sustainability means to them, to their business, and to help them get there via strategic planning, action planning, training of staff as well, and all the things. And on the right, you have two drawings. One is, I guess that's my connection to France. It's a French singer called Serge Gainsbourg, and a different type of illustration, which is more cartoony type. That's an illustration I did during a session about how to use art to create resilient cities. So that's just to show different kinds of drawings, and how I've been trying over the last number of years, especially the last 2 years, to find ways to use drawing and illustration to make my sustainability work more effective. So maybe you're familiar with the fact that there are several learning channels that are often used when you try to communicate something or teach something or learn something. Different people learn best in different ways. So there's the obvious audio way. Some people remember or learn better when they hear things. There's the visual way. We're combining the two right now with on-screen visuals and audio at the same time. And there's also the kinesthetic way. That's when people learn better when they actually move their body and move their hands and move in the room to learn things and go towards different objects, that kind of thing. So the best learning experience often happens when you manage to combine the three, especially in a group of people, because if you have only one person and they learn well visually, then that's easier. But when you're with a group of people and they all have different ways to learn, the better you combine these three learning channels, the better learning experience you'll get. And I mentioned that we were going to talk about the left brain and the right brain. I don't know if some of you are already familiar with that, but that's something that I have found fascinating in my drawing and artistic whereabouts. That's actually, some of you draw probably know that, but when you learn how to draw, you actually learn to turn off your left brain and turn on your right brain, because that's when you get the best drawing experience, and when you can represent visually via drawing something that your right brain sees without being affected by the left brain. So the left brain is about linear thinking a lot of the time. It's about numbers, words, languages, communicating with words and language and numbers and all the things that we spent many years learning at school, for most of us, I suspect, and also using logic to solve problem. And we'll get back to that when connecting this to the sustainability imperative, because that's when using only the left brain to solve problems can present some issues. And at the same time, the right brain tends to be more useful to think holistically, to see the end already without using any kind of analytical thinking or anything like that. It's just like sometimes you can just visualize what you want to get at the end. It's about creativity as well, and drawing and all that. It's also about moving randomly from task to task. You don't always get your best work done by moving in a linear fashion all the time. And it's also about using your intuition to solve problems. And that's the part that I find kind of fascinating. So left brain, linear analytical thinking; right brain, more holistic thinking. You already know what you want to get at the end, and using your intuition. And what's interesting about that is that I'm not sure, I don't want to speak for all of us, but it's probably true for most of us on the call right now. You probably spent the first 20-25 years of your life focusing mostly on developing your left brain, meaning learning math and physics and English or other languages, and practicing your logic skills and solving problems and all that. I don't know how many times you got exams at school when your teacher actually said, well, for the next 2 hours, just use your intuition to solve these 3 problems. That probably didn't happen very often. At least it never happened to me. So that's the difference between left and right brain, and to emphasize the fact that all of us probably spent more time in our life so far using our left brain than our right brain. And that's what I'm trying to bring to this webinar today, and in my work, is to not forget the left brain, but try to engage the right brain a little more, to help people understand and visualize things and solve problems without only linear and analytical thinking, but also with more using their intuition and holistic thinking. So to illustrate a little bit the difference between the right brain and the left brain, so you understand what I'm getting at with that. Those of you who draw or paint or play music or meditate or many other things for that matter, even when you cook, you can get that on occasion, but you get this feeling of losing the sense of time. You've probably all experienced that. That's a lot of the time when your left brain lets go and when your right brain actually takes over. And that's also a feeling that, and that's the slide you have on the screen right now, that's also a feeling that you get when you drive on the highway at night for a long time. At some point, you kind of lose this notion of time, and you're still focused on the road, and you're not necessarily being dangerous, but your left brain kind of shuts down because there's no symbols, no little things to trigger your thinking from a left brain perspective anymore, and your right brain takes over and goes places. And that's when sometimes you get very imaginative or creative, or you have all these crazy ideas and all that. That's just to help you connect with what I'm describing here. I have a very good exercise that I considered doing during doing during the webinar to actually trigger your right brain. But it takes about 5 minutes and it's very quiet. So I was worried it would be a little awkward on a webinar setting, but I can share that with you later if you're interested in it. Another example of right brain experience is seeing or experiencing beautiful things, like the Sistine Chapel, or like probably many other things that you've experienced in your life. And it's very hard to describe with words or language or numbers. I mean, you can, if you see the Sistine Chapel or something else for that matter, you can, tell your friends on the phone later in the day and tell them it's a beautiful chapel with, beautiful paintings on the ceilings and, with a lot of orange and blue and all that. But it's never going to be expressed with words as it is when you're actually seeing it and when you're actually surrounded with it and in the middle of it. And that's the same with music. Yeah, there's probably some music that does that to you, and that actually puts your right brain forward, and you experience things. It speaks to the heart, I almost want to say, in a way that things that are more left brain don't tend to do as much or as well. So these are just a few examples to help you understand what I mean by left brain and right brain experience. So there's a very famous quote by Albert Einstein. He said a lot of very smart things, but one of them is this one that I especially like, because I think it adapts well to the sustainability imperative. And he said, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. I like this this quote so much that I actually did a video about it. And this, like I said, this is very, very much applicable to our sustainability imperative, because there's a lot of sustainability issues, problem nowadays that we can't solve by using the same kind of thinking. And I came up with my own quote. I apologize in advance if it's not as brilliant as Einstein's one, but I want to say we cannot solve our sustainability problems using only our left brain. And I guess that's the point that I want to make. It's not enough, and it's not enough to think analytically and in a linear fashion with numbers and accountant and dollars and value and all that. Sometimes you need to also use the right brain. Like I said earlier, not necessarily shut down for good the left brain, but at least try and create more balance and speak to the heart a little more, speak to people's intuition. And a lot of people already know what needs to be done or how it needs to be done. And sometimes words and numbers, like describing the Sistine Chapel, is not the best way to communicate the message. So that's the point that I guess I'm trying to make, and what I'm trying to do more of in my work. So now that we've set the stage a little bit with the difference between the right brain and the left brain, and the connecting that with the sustainability imperative, I'm going to spend the next 10 to 15 minutes to actually give you folks tools that are around, that some of them I created, some of them I didn't. That most of them are visual tools. They're kind of audio visual tools. Some of them can also be a little bit kinesthetic, actually. But hopefully tools that will help you be even more effective as a sustainability champion, regardless of what you do. I mean, there's about 70 people connected right now, so you probably all have very different backgrounds work and things that you're interested in. So I'm going to present a variety of tools, and you can just pick and choose and keep what's helpful to you and leave what's not. So videos are pretty good for many reasons. The first one is that if you go back to the 3 learning channels that we talked about at the beginning of the webinar, visual, audio, and kinesthetic, videos are not ideal for kinesthetic, but they're pretty good for the other two. And to some extent, I would even argue that in a workshop setting, in person, you can even get people to interact in a kinesthetic fashion with the video, if you really want to do that, and if you want to make sure that you combine the 3 of them. But they're very good for visual and audio, and videos have improved a lot, and video channels have improved a lot, as you already know, over the last few years. YouTube is for those of you who don't know that yet, YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world right now, behind Google. And lots of people learn with YouTube. They learn about pottery, about history, about math, about languages, about many different things. Now they also learn about sustainability with YouTube videos. So videos can be a very powerful way to communicate sustainability and to learn and teach as well. So I created a YouTube channel, which is also a website right now. It's called Sustainability Illustrated. What you have on the screen right now is a screenshot of the video page on the website. And so you can access the website. The links are at the bottom, but the website is at sustainabilityillustrated.com, and the YouTube channel is youtube.com/learnsustainability. So I started creating videos about sustainability, sustainability concept, sustainability issues, things to help understand the challenge, things to help do something about it. So there's about 13 videos right now. Some of them are about common concepts like the ecological footprint. I'll get into that for a minute, just to show you how it works. The webinars are not the greatest way to actually share a video, so I'm not going to do that now. Some of you have seen some of the videos. If you haven't, and if you're interested in it, you can go do that after the webinar, but I'm not gonna do that right now because that wouldn't look very good. So some of them are about common concepts like the ecological footprint. Some of them are about climate change. Some of them are about, the business case for sustainability, putting numbers on small, medium-sized business or a large corporation doing having sustainability initiatives and doing something about it. How much more money do they make? One is about the sustainability challenge. One is about another common concept, the triple bottom line, but with another look at it. So there's about 13 of them right now. As I said, I create 1 or 2 new ones every month, and all these videos are free. So they are freely accessible on YouTube and on sustainabilityillustrated.com. And there's various ways to use them. I've received a lot of feedback over the last year. So some people use them in a classroom context, teachers. Some people use them in a workshop setting. Some people use them on their intranet as teaching, training tools. There's many ways to use that depending on what's interesting to you and what you need and what your job is or your interest. And so to give you a very brief example of what I'm trying to do in these videos, you can tell there are still words in there, so it's not 100% highway at night right brain experience. It's a combination of left and right brain. There's audio narration with the video, and there's words on screen to reinforce some keywords, some key learning concepts, and to try and make the best learning experience that's possibly feasible on a short video. And there's also a lot of drawings. So a lot of the time what I'm trying to do with the drawings is not do what the words already do. So typically if I'm talking like in this video about the ecological footprint, that explains in 5 or 6 minutes what the ecological footprint is and how it works and how you can use it as a tool. There's a description at the beginning of Earth Overshoot Day, which was on August 19th last year, and it's actually a pretty relevant video because the Living Planet report 2014 was published yesterday. So instead of using a drawing that would be very much about Earth Overshoot Day and that kind of thing, I would use a drawing of an empty fridge to help people understand that after August 19th, it's like you've used your resources for the year, and after that you have to live on your, well, we as human being on planet Earth have to live with our with the capital instead of the interest. So there's the audio uses the example of a bank account, and the drawings would reinforce the idea of your savings in a little pig, and also the idea of an empty fridge, to help people connect the dots basically in various ways. So I'm not gonna get much more into the details of this video. I also wanted to share this one because it's one of the most popular one on the YouTube channel, so people find it useful. Another way to use drawings and illustrations in a video context is to tell a story. Stories can be very powerful, and I'll get back to that in a few minutes. But storytelling can be very powerful, and these are actually the illustrations of one of the videos, which is about system thinking, and it tells a very quick story in about 1.5 or 2 minutes of a story that's known as Operation Cat Drop. It's a very funny story that makes I think in a very powerful way, makes the point of system thinking. And if you don't use holistic thinking when trying to solve a problem, there is a risk you're going to create an even bigger problem. So that's another way drawings and videos can be used, not to teach a concept, but more to tell a story as a way to get a concept across, and to help people understand it in a different way that's engaging for them. That's another video that was created for the city of Perth in Australia a few months ago. It's actually the city of Canning, which is a part of the city of Perth in Australia, and that's another example of what can be explained in this kind of video, whiteboard, speed drawing, whatever we want to call that kind of video. And that's the scene in the video that explains human needs and social sustainability, and how becoming sustainable is about balancing meeting our human needs, our fundamental human needs, and while within ecological constraints, to keep it short. So that's actually a 10-minute video that is a little longer than what you will find on the YouTube channel, but that's a 10-minute video that actually explains what sustainability is from an ecological perspective, how it connects to the social aspects of things, and then what the city of Canning does about it in a very concrete, like the last scene of the video is actually examples of things that the city of Canning does. And it's a video that they use internally to train their staff, and also externally for people who live in the city of Canning to understand better what sustainability is about and what the city they live in does about it. So that was another example. Another one, this one is in French, so I apologize, although there's probably some of you speak French, but it's you can probably translate that into English fairly easily. That's the idea is not even mine. The people who I did that for actually had the idea in the first place, and I thought that was quite good. So that's why I wanted to share it with you today. That was used in a workshop setting, and that was a little, not even sure what to call that, a little brochure, a little something that came with the workshop workbook. When students did a one-day workshop, they had this little drawing, cartoony thing to help them. So you probably won't understand just with the drawings what it was about, but people who attended the workshop, the point was to help people who attended the workshop remember and reconnect after the workshop with the key concept that they did during the workshop. So it was a kind of a one pager folded in the middle like that to use graphically and visually to reinforce what was done during the workshop. And people, the idea was to hopefully make something pretty and or even beautiful that people wouldn't drop in the recycling bin at the end of the workshop, but that would take with them, that would take home and possibly go back to later. So the one side was actually illustrations of what we did during the workshop, and the inside part that you see at the bottom of the screen here was actually boxes to help people take notes and remember key things and keywords that they want to remember. So I thought that was a quite of a neat idea to trigger the right brain in a workshop context, and even after the workshop. Something else that I do is I publish every month a newsletter that's very much a toolbox. It's basically a newsletter with a bunch of visual tools that people can use. It's all related, connected to sustainable development somehow, whether it's climate change or pure ecological things or social sustainability and so on. But that's a newsletter that I publish once a month to help people get quick and easy access to a bunch of visual tools. Something else I do is that I post every day on social networks, Facebook and Twitter mostly, and LinkedIn as well, I guess. Images or videos or photos to add to your visual toolbox. So then you can, you have good images when you need them, when you organize a workshop or something. So there's various things that I post, usually one every day or sometimes two, and there I try to get a diversity of things. But the one in the top left is actually it's a short RSA animate video, and it's an animation video. The one in the top right is one that had a lot of success in the last few weeks. That's why I wanted to share it today. It's a little illustration that I didn't do. I couldn't give the credit to the artist because I couldn't find it anywhere, but I think it's quite brilliant. So it can be a little cartoon like that to illustrate the importance of holistic thinking. It could be photos, like the image in the bottom left corner, which is actually a project that a French supermarket started a few months ago, which I think is quite brilliant. They created what they call the ugly vegetables to create a campaign, and they actually sell in the supermarket 30% cheaper all the vegetables that don't fit in the usual shapes and format. So That's another one. I also share work by other people, other YouTubers and people who create videos, not necessarily on sustainability, but on occasion they have videos that are that can be very useful from a sustainability perspective. And the one in the bottom right corner is actually was actually about why eating insects is a very good idea from a footprint perspective, and with very interesting numbers about how little resources, fewer resources in water and land, insects would use if we ate them instead of, beef or pig or chicken and all that. So that's something else, visuals on social networks. And I said we would talk about storytelling a little bit. That's going to be the end of the part where I talk. Then it's going to be your turn to. I'm going to turn it to questions. But telling stories can be a very powerful way to alter people's behavior, as Jonas Sachs says, and it's most of you probably already know that, but that's another way to help people connect with their right brain. And so I wanted to talk briefly about this book, which I think is totally brilliant. If you're interested in this, and if you haven't read that, I think you'll find it very interesting too. It's a book by Jonas Sachs called Winning the Story Wars. And Jonas Sachs is actually the founder of a very well-known studio in the US, design studio called Free Range Studio. It's actually, if you don't know Free Range and or Jonas Sachs, you probably know one of the projects that they worked on because it's extremely well known and successful. It's the Story of Stuff. They are the people who created the Story of Stuff with Annie Leonard. They created all the videos. So they're quite brilliant, and this book is especially interesting. It makes a bunch of very interesting points, including the fact that, well, like I said, there's this quote from Jonas Sachs: "Stories have the power to radically alter people's behavior," and also that storytelling is coming back nowadays in a way that, like the old school oral storytelling as it used to be for thousands of years. What he calls the digital era is now replacing the broadcasting era. And why is that? Mostly thanks to social networks and viral stuff, and basically because we are now able again to share stories with a handful of friends, and to share them very quickly, very efficiently, like people used to do around the fire at night. We can now do that with social networks. And what this does is that it makes it possible for people who are not spending millions of dollars on Super Bowl ads to get very visible and to get their points across as well. Because as individuals, when we choose to share something with our tribe, it's free, and it can be extremely powerful, like the Story of Stuff that I was talking about a minute ago. So I guess the point is that 50 years ago, if you wanted to launch a product or a service, your best bet, at least in North America, was to buy a few millions of dollars of ad during the Super Bowl. Nowadays, you can do that for $0 if your project, product, service actually speaks to what people want and what they're interested in. So I'm not going to tell you all the story of the book in there, but the key messages are: tell the truth, be interesting, and live the truth. It's about basically true storytelling, not about telling fake stories about what you think you do or what you want people to think you do and all that. But it's about telling your story in a way that engages people There's hundreds of examples in the book, and one of them is the story of Patagonia, and there's many others, and basically stories where large companies and or small projects, like the story of stuff when it started, can actually become very big just by building upon people's goodwill and people sharing the messages that they believe in with their tribe. So another key learning from me was make your customer the hero. And that there's the second half of the book is actually built on Joseph Campbell's archetypes and hero journey, and basically, it's when you tell the story, try and not tell how wonderful you are or how wonderful your product and service are, but more how your product and service is the gift that will empower your customer to become the hero themselves. And so I find that very, very interesting and powerful. and basically this makes it possible for you to be the catalyst, the mentor that helps them meet their needs. So on just to wrap that up, that's there's also a lot of the book is full of beautiful illustrations done by Jonah Sachs' business partner, who's an illustrator. So it's not pure visual and right brain experience, but it's I find it a very interesting way to combine storytelling and using visuals and triggering the right brain in different ways to ultimately and hopefully alter people's behaviors. This being said, as making you folks the hero of this webinar, these tools are yours. So I'm now interested to hear what you want to do with them. And I guess I'm gonna now leave it up to you to do whatever makes sense to you with all this. That's my contribution to using visuals and using the right brain to engaging more the right brain, I should say, not only, but more, in order to communicate sustainability more effectively and to teach and learn and train, coach, and everything else. So before I open it to questions, here's a slide with a little bit of contact information in case you're interested in following up with any of us. So thank you to the Natural Step Canada for organizing this webinar. That's where you guys signed up for the webinar, so you already know that. But here is the contact info again. Sustainability Illustrated is, like I said, a website and a YouTube channel with the links below. My website and my business is, when I do on the illustrating side of things, is AM Creative, and you can find everything on amcreative.org. Other examples of projects that I worked on that maybe can give you ideas of things that you can do for yourself. And this is that. I'm going to minimize the screen again, because that's the only way for me to be able to see the questions in the chat box. So there we go. I'm going to pause for a couple of minutes so I can read the questions and start answering. So thank you for attending today. If you don't want to stick around for the next 15 minutes, or if you don't have questions, or if you have somewhere else you need to be, thank you for attending. And I'm gonna keep it quiet for a minute or two so you can think about your question and type them in the question chat box. I think I'll take them in just by order of first question. So there you go. I'm going to read all that for about a minute. Okay, so I had a quick look. You probably see the questions on the screen as well. So I'm gonna do that in total improv, transparent way. You can see I'm not avoiding questions because I didn't shut the screen as I was reading them. So I'm gonna go through them one by one. Great graphic on the left. I'm not sure which one that was, but thanks. Most of the graphics that I use during the webinars are mine, except for the right brain, left brain one, and a few others. But oh, I'm sorry, you could see the mouse on the screen. I didn't realize that. Sorry. I hope I didn't mess that up too much. Please share this exercise. Well, I'm not going to run it right now, but it's so for those of you who are interested in drawing and left brain, right brain, one of the book that is the Bible of a lot of artists, or at least a lot of them say everything you need to know about drawing and painting is in this book. It's called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain, and it basically teaches you how to draw using your right brain and shutting down the left brain. And there's many exercises to help you do that. One of them is creating a little, like closing the palm of your hand a little bit to create as many wrinkles as you can, staring for about 5 minutes into the wrinkles in your hand, and with the other hand behind you or on your side, use a piece of paper with the pencil and use a timer. Do it for 5 full minutes. And that's the beauty of the exercise, is the actually doing it for 5 minutes. That's why I didn't want to do it for 2 or 3 minutes on the webinar, because you may not get as powerful a result. But by putting a 5-minute timer and focusing 5 minutes on your hand, looking at wrinkles and drawing without lifting your pencil from the piece of paper, just draw very slowly all your wrinkles with your right hand, if you're right-handed, and vice versa if you're left-handed, staring at the palm of your hand for 5 minutes. And it takes a good 2 or 3 minutes to actually get in the zone, like I like to say, this kind of highway at night kind of zone. And after 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, you get into this space where you actually see the lines in your hand in a way that you've never seen them before. It's quite a neat exercise. It takes only 5 minutes, and it's really, really brilliant. So once again, close the palm of your hand a little bit to create as many wrinkles as you can, and with the other hand, draw for 5 full minutes very slowly, the wrinkles in your hand. Anyway, there's many other exercises actually to teach you how to draw. There's a bunch of exercises drawing something that's upside down. Basically, every time you're going to draw something that you don't recognize as well, if you're going to draw just a simple character or something like that, if you copy a drawing that's upside down in a way that you can't really recognize what's the nose, what's the eyes, what's the hand, then you're gonna draw actually what you see, as opposed to drawing what you think things are, like symbols, like, oh, that's a hand, so it should have this shape. When you don't know it's a hand, then you just copy the shapes of it. And that's when you actually can tell the difference between using your left brain and right brain. So the title of the book, again, for those of you who are interested, is Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. It's so famous that you'll find it anywhere extremely easily, and super, super interesting. It's based on a 4 or 5 day workshop that teaches you to draw, and by the end of the workshop, people can draw a self-portrait. And I'm going to use this opportunity to say that anybody can draw. I'm gonna kill the myth right here that only talented people can draw. Anybody can draw, like anybody can read and write and everything else. If you learn how to do it, you too can draw. Most of us drew a lot until we turned 7, 8, or 9 years old, and then the school system told us that writing and counting and all that was more important, so we kind of stopped. But if you want to learn how to draw, I can tell you right now that after a few days, if you're dedicated to it, you will be able to draw too. Here's the end of a myth. You should participate in the Future of Storytelling conference in New York City next year. That's a very good idea. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I'll look it up. The Australian video, you'll find that on my website here, amcreative.org. If you go to the portfolio section, I don't have a link top of mind right now, but it's very easy to find on amcreative.org. There's a big slide on the homepage about it, and you'll also find it in the portfolio section. It's a great video, actually. It's obviously was designed for the city of Canning, but it can be used in a different context if you skip the last minute and a half. How to use your right brain and visual tools to communicate with people, mostly using their left brain. Well, you can't. You have to engage their right brain. I'm not sure if I understand the question well, but at some point you have to deliberately trigger the right brain. And there's a bunch of exercises to do that, like I just said, like just getting people in the zone by doing the exercise that I just described with the palm of your hand. Or there's many other exercises that are available, and including in the drawing on the right side of the brain. But you can, there's also the other exercise that is very, I don't have an image handy right here, but this drawing of a vase that's also two facing faces. That's a good exercise to force people to get out of their left brain for a minute and use their right brain. But at the end of the day, if you want people to use their right brain, you have to put them in the space where they can do that. And so you have to deliberately get them out of everything that's, kind of symbol oriented, icons. Every time you can recognize something that, you see whatever, a moon, and you're like, that's a moon. And then people have associated with what a moon is and does. And then, it's hard to get out of that. So that's that. I'm curious to hear more about the activity you consider doing the stimulation of the right brain. So that we already did that. Yesterday I published a blog with some helpful illustration. Would like feedback? Sure, I will look at that and try and give you feedback as much as I can. Where do you look for credible sustainability data? Numbers, percentage? Wow, that's a tough question. There's millions of places for that. Well, there's a lot of newsletters, obviously, that you can sign up to. So all the well-known newsletters like CSR Wire, like many, I don't have them top of mind right now. But there's a lot of newsletters you can sign up to. There's when it's about numbers, depending on what kind of numbers you're looking for. But I find the ecological footprint network is a great source for numbers around wildlife and ecological stuff. So like I said, the 2014 Living Planet report was published yesterday, and that's a mine for numbers, whether it's about climate change or many other things. That's hard to answer that just just like that. I'll try and maybe I'll write a blog about it. Actually, that's maybe I'll do that. I'll try and put a bunch of things that I use. I mean, I also use a variety of things, including YouTube channels, including Upworthy can have interesting videos and or graphics and or numbers and results of research on occasion. So maybe I'll write a blog about that and share as many resources as I can. Having tried my right brain, you're welcome, Olivier. I hope I did a little bit of that, although it's extremely challenging in a webinar setting. Thank you. You're welcome. Small question joke. Not sure having catch the link between sustainability and Serge Gainsbourg. There's none. That was just to show off a great drawing that I like a lot. Great work. I missed the beginning, and can I have access to the recording afterwards? Absolutely. We are recording, so we'll probably post that on the Natural Step Canada website. I'm sorry you couldn't hear anything all of a sudden, but hopefully that came back and not too many people had that experience. Are there particular examples you share of organizations who have successfully told their sustainability story through visuals? I don't have a huge amount of examples of that. I mean, I think obviously the story of stuff is probably one of the most wonderful example. In the book Winning the Story Wars, you'll find a lot of good stories, like the Patagonia story. That's one of the first ones that comes to mind. The others are not necessarily sustainability related stories. They're just stories that happen to work really well with storytelling and visuals. There's only 1 minute or 2 minutes left, so I'm going to try and go a little quicker. I've always looked at something like the videos you've done. I think they're powerful to communicate. What about the software you use to create them? Do you use Sparkle or anything like that? No, that's actually, if I had more time, I would tell you more about that. I don't use any software. That's not true. I use some software for editing. Here is in a nutshell how I do them and I draw directly on my screen. I have a pen tablet, a very big one to get better results. I draw directly on my screen and record the screen with a $5 screen recorder that you can find anywhere. That creates a big, long, several hour kind of video. And then I throw everything in, I work on Mac, so I throw everything in, what are they called again? Final Cut Pro and Motion. Mostly Final Cut Pro for editing, although I started working with that only a month ago, and I spent more than a year working with iMovie, so you can totally do that with iMovie as well. And I throw everything in iMovie, accelerate, cut and paste and edit, and do everything I need to do to synchronize the drawings with the narration. And that's about it. Very low-tech process. I've heard a lot of people talk about Sparkle and all that. It's I think it works very well as well. I can't talk about it because I don't know it, but that's another way to do it. The only trick about when you use softwares like Sparkle and others is that one of the powerful things about these videos and the drawings is actually the choice of the drawing. So when you do that, try and not use the library too much, because a lot of the time when you use the library, you actually get very standard illustrations. And I think you could lose the power of having the right illustration for the right message you want to get across. So even if you use a software like that to actually do the technical part of it, I would suggest that you find a way to get your own illustrations or take a lot of time to find the right illustration and not just quickly pick something in the library. Do you recommend your sustainability videos to be watched in a particular order? Yes, there's a playlist that's called Sustainability Crash Course or something like that, and it's a pretty good order, I think. There's 2 other playlists on the YouTube channel that are actually a good orders as well, and one is the sustainability challenge, and the other one is planning towards sustainability. So it organizes the videos in more of a theme, and they're in order as well. And the the playlist in YouTube are on the left hand side when you're in there. I'm gonna, there's still a few questions, so I'm gonna take an extra couple of minutes to answer the questions for those of you who are interested. If you wanna leave, obviously you're welcome to leave the webinar anytime. We've been interested in a short video that we could use during corporate staff sustainability training, something engaging but explain sustainability 101. Have you created anything like that? Yes, the first two videos that I created on the and posted on the YouTube channel are actually pretty good for that. The City of Canning video is like the first 8 minutes of the video, which is actually 10 minutes, is awesome for that because it's not very canning focused. Only the last 2 minutes are. Well, I guess the first 30 seconds and the last minute and a half, but everything in the middle is quite good. If you want something more neutral, you can use the first two videos on the YouTube channel. And I'm also creating some customized videos that are using the videos on the YouTube channel, but that I repackage with, a message at the beginning and an end card at the end, and a new narration that these people send me to have more of an Anglophone voice without the French accent and that kind of thing, so that I actually reuse existing videos that I repackage for them so that they can use them on their intranet and in a workshop setting when they do training with their staff. And that can be done with any of the videos I've done so far. The more we reuse and recycle what's already been done, the less work it is and the easier it is. Thank you. Finding the right balance between traditional and new approaches will be the key. I totally agree with you. Like I said, don't drop the left brain. It's very good too, but don't use only that when you can. Where do you find the inspiration for your visuals? In my brain. That's the most time-consuming part, is finding the right visual for the right thing. And I mean, to be honest with you, on occasion I also surf Google Images and other things to in my brainstorming sessions to actually come up with more ideas on occasion, because a lot of people have already thought about some things. Can you share the slides? Sure, I can totally do that. They're probably hard to understand without. They're only images. There's very little text on them, so it's probably hard to understand without the talking on top of it. But that's totally fine. As new types of multidisciplinary teams are required, not all are end-to-end consultant plus designer like you, for sure. Thanks, I'll try it. Very interesting. Is there any more questions, or can we wrap it up? Webinar on climate change. CSR will be very useful. Have you decided which ideas are very complex? Oh, how do you decide which ideas are very complex? How do you devise the ideas? Well, that's I pretty much improvise, and like I said at the beginning, a lot of what I do through these videos is actually built on what I used to do in a workshop setting with businesses and communities, and that's why I started making these videos, because when I had a room of 20 people who found some 15 or 20 minute explanation on something very interesting, I was like, well, maybe I should make a video about that, so that not only the 20 people in the room can get it, but tens of thousands of people online can actually have access to that. So that's a lot of the time how I create the videos. I have a long list of videos to create that are basically things that I have experienced or I've heard people need to understand better, or that when I explained it to them, they were very excited and they had never seen it or heard it from that perspective. So that's that. I mean, I don't really decide which ideas are very complex to illustrate. I just, I go with storyline for a video or a concept that I want to explain, either because it's very popular and I think it could be explained in a better, more clearer way, or because I know some people have said they needed it. Thank you on Target, inspirational, great work. Well, that's good. I'm glad I managed to do that a little bit, at least for some of you. In Europe, the circular economy is very popular. Do you have a video on this? No, it's on my list because my French roots and my French networks told me that it was a very popular, and also because I go to France in Europe on a regular basis. So I know it's a popular one and it's on my list. It's not in the next 3 or 4, but it should come, depending on how much time I have to do that, it should come between, I don't know, call that the end of the year or early 2015, but I'm definitely working on a video on circular economy because it's one of these terms, and that could help answer the previous questions as well. How do I choose the ideas and concepts when there's something like that a word or an expression that is used a lot and that not everybody is clear about? I try to make a video about it to make sure that people who don't necessarily know exactly what it is can get it in 5 minutes. And yeah, there's already a very good one, says Kiara. So there you go. Maybe you can share the link, Kiara, so that we can share it with people who are interested in that. But at the end of the day, when you look for a good video on something, you can do what a lot of people do, which is go to YouTube and type the keywords in the search engine field. Like I said at the beginning, the YouTube is the second largest search engine nowadays, and there's a lot of very good videos that you can find just by searching them on YouTube. So feel free to do that. So that's it. I'm gonna wrap it up here. We are 8 minutes late, so I apologize for that, even 10. Thank you very much for attending, and thank you for the kind words in the chat box. And I hope that was helpful. Don't hesitate to contact me directly via the website or via email or whatever is convenient. If you have more questions, or if you're looking for specific resources, like the question that was asked about sources for numbers and percentage and all that. And that's it for today. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.